Garrison, at 38 years old, was a man running on fumes and faith. His personal salary for the last 12 years had effectively been zero. Every dollar of profit, every seed round, every bridge loan poured back into the ravenous furnace of his startup, Nexus Flow. He lived in a sprawling $3.2 million glass and stone house in Westlake Hills that his wife, Erica, had insisted upon. But he drove a 10-year-old Toyota Camry with 187,000 miles on the odometer. His entire net worth was a theoretical number tied to a B2B SaaS platform that, until this morning, felt more like a lead weight than a golden ticket. Now at 10 a.m. on a blindingly bright Tuesday in Austin, Texas, everything was about to change. He sat in a sterile conference room on the 34th floor of a glass tower downtown, the air thick with the smell of expensive coffee and palpable tension. Across the vast, polished mahogany table, valued at an obscene $45,000, sat the corporate development team from Salesforce. They were sharks, but they were smiling sharks. They had put him through 6 months of the most grueling due diligence he had ever imagined. They had scrutinized his code, interrogated his engineers, and questioned his monthly recurring revenue figures down to the last decimal point. Garrison, a proud black man who had built his company from a laptop in a South Lamar co-working space, had faced it all with a quiet, unshakable resolve. He had felt their skepticism, the subtle undertone that a founder like him was an anomaly. He wore his favorite, slightly frayed $250 J. Crew blazer, a stark contrast to the sea of $8,700 Armani suits across from him. His deep brown skin seemed to absorb the fluorescent light, giving him a grounded presence in the ethereal, high-rise room. His locks, which he'd been growing for a decade, were neatly tied back. He was the only one in the room who didn't look like he belonged in a bank vault, and he knew it. The lead negotiator, a man named Peterson, with a $15,000 Rolex on his wrist that he kept glancing at, slid a thick document across the table. "This is the final version, Garrison. $100 million, all cash. Standard terms for an acqui-hire. Your team gets folded into our enterprise cloud division. You get a VP title and a 3-year lock-in. $100 million. The number hung in the air, so immense it felt tasteless. For 12 years, he had survived on ramen, reinvested his own small inheritance, and begged friends and family for $5,000 checks. He had missed weddings, funerals, and birthdays. He had listened to Erica's mounting complaints about their cash-poor lifestyle, her voice a constant, sharp reminder of his perceived failures. She wanted the kitchen remodeled for $1.2 million. He was worried about making payroll for his 12 employees. The stress had carved lines into his face and sprinkled his locks with gray. But he had held on. He believed in his product. He had no idea how profoundly that belief, and the victory it was about to deliver, would dismantle his entire world in less than 10 hours. He had no idea what was waiting for him at home. What he did know was the ache in his bones and the desperate hope that this single transaction would fix everything. It would validate the sacrifice. It would silence the doubters. Most of all, he believed, it would finally make Erica happy. It would give her the security and the lifestyle she so relentlessly craved. He picked up the $12 fountain pen provided for the signing, its weight feeling both insignificant and monumental. He took a deep breath. The sanitized air of the conference room a poor substitute for the real world outside. He had no idea how wrong he was. But right now, in this moment, he was about to become a $100 million man, and he thought that meant he had finally won. Have you ever poured your entire soul into something, believing it would save you, only to find out it was the very thing that exposed a devastating truth? Let us know in the comments if you've ever faced a moment that changed everything. And don't forget to subscribe to Love Beyond Pride for more stories of truth and transformation. The facade of Garrison and Erica's life was a masterpiece of modern architecture and quiet desperation. Their Westlake Hills home was a monument to her ambition and his deferred dreams. Perched on a cliffside overlooking a sliver of the Austin skyline, it was all clean lines, floor-to-ceiling glass, and stark white walls. Erica had hired a famous interior designer, a woman who charged a $50,000 retainer, to fill the space with minimalist furniture that was as uncomfortable as it was expensive. A single gray sectional sofa in the living room had cost $28,000. The abstract painting above it, a chaotic splash of black on a white canvas, was another $18,000. Garrison had once joked that it looked like a Rorschach test of their credit card debt, a comment for which Erica had frozen him out with a chilling silence for 3 full days. Their life was a series of domestic normalcy scenes, each one layered with the subtle tension of their financial disparity. On a typical Saturday morning, Garrison would be up at dawn, wearing a faded Howard University sweatshirt and a pair of $40 running shorts, making coffee in their gleaming, state-of-the-art kitchen. The espresso machine alone, a sleek Italian model, had been a $7,000 purchase Erica had made without consulting him. "It's an investment in our mornings, darling," she'd said, her voice smooth as silk. As he measured out the coffee beans, his mind would be on server uptime and churn rates. Erica would descend the floating glass staircase around 10 a.m., looking radiant. Her skin, a luminous shade of deep brown, was always flawless. Her hair, often styled in intricate, elegant braids that cost $400 a session, would be perfect. She'd be wearing a $200 silk robe. "Morning, baby," she'd murmur, kissing the air near his cheek before pouring herself a glass of the $80 cold-pressed green juice she had delivered weekly. "Morning," he'd reply, handing her a mug of coffee. "Big day today. We're pushing the new security patch. If it goes well, our enterprise trial conversion should tick up a few points." She would take a delicate sip from the mug, her eyes scanning the room, already finding a flaw. "That's nice, Garrison. Did you see the new catalog from Restoration Hardware? They have the most perfect outdoor chaise lounges. They're only $4,500 each. We'd need 4. Her focus was always on the material, the tangible, the things that could be photographed and posted. His world of code, data, and strategy was an abstraction she tolerated but never engaged with. One evening, about a year before the Salesforce deal, they hosted a dinner party. It was Erica's idea, a chance to show off the house to her circle of friends, women who were married to doctors, lawyers, and old money scions. Garrison had spent the day coding, emerging from his home office at 6 p.m., his eyes bleary. Erica met him at the door, her expression tight with disapproval. She was wearing a stunning, backless, $2,400 Burberry dress. "You can't wear that," she said, gesturing to a simple button-down shirt and jeans, which together cost less than $100. "Our guests will be here in an hour. Please, just for tonight, try to look like you belong here." The sting of her words was sharp, a familiar pang of inadequacy. He showered and put on the one expensive suit he owned, a $3,000 Canali he'd bought for their wedding. He felt like an imposter in his own home. Throughout the dinner, he listened as Erica and her friends discussed European vacations, jewelry acquisitions, and the politics of the local country club. When someone politely asked Garrison what he did, he tried to explain his SaaS business. "We provide a workflow automation platform for mid-sized logistics companies," he started, his voice full of a passion he couldn't suppress. Before he could elaborate, Erica cut in with a tinkling laugh. "He plays with computers, mostly. It's his little project. More wine, anyone?" The table moved on, leaving him in a pocket of humiliated silence. His little project was the culmination of his life's work, the thing that consumed his every waking thought, and she had dismissed it like a child's hobby. The dollar tag details of their life were a constant source of friction. Her closet was a showroom of luxury brands, a collection of Chanel handbags totaling over $60,000, rows of Christian Louboutin shoes with their signature red soles, each pair costing upwards of $900. His side of the closet was sparse, holding a few pairs of jeans, his worn Red Wing boots that cost $150 6 years ago, and stacks of identical black t-shirts. He managed the company's finances with ruthless efficiency, but he had lost control of their domestic budget completely. She spent money they didn't have, running up credit card bills that he would then have to pay off by taking smaller and smaller personal draws from the company, sacrificing his own financial stability for the illusion of hers. He told himself it was temporary. He told himself that once Nexus Flow sold, all of this would be a distant memory. He would give her everything she ever wanted, and the tension would finally dissolve. He was a man building a kingdom, and he didn't realize the queen had already abdicated the throne and was planning to loot the treasury on her way out. The conference room at Salesforce Tower was hermetically sealed from the world. The only sound was the faint hum of the HVAC system and the rustle of paper. At 10:17 a.m., Garrison uncapped the expensive fountain pen. His hand, usually so steady when soldering a circuit board or typing a line of code, had the slightest tremor. This was it, the culmination of 4,680 days of relentless effort. He thought of his first office, a desk he rented for $300 a month in a dusty warehouse in East Austin. He thought of the first programmer he hired, a brilliant young woman from UT Austin whom he could only afford to pay $40,000 a year, and who had stuck with him through it all. He thought of the near bankruptcies, the sleepless nights, the constant grinding doubt. Peterson, the lead negotiator, watched him with an unreadable expression. "Ready to make it official, Garrison?" Garrison looked at the signature line. Below it the words, "Garrison Hayes, founder and CEO, Nexus Flow LLC." He looked up, his gaze sweeping over the faces of the Salesforce team. They were buying his work, his intellect, his future, but they had no idea what it had cost him on a personal level. They saw a successful exit, a number with 8 zeros. He saw the ghost of his social life, the strained relationship with his family, the ever-widening canyon between him and his wife. He pressed the nib to the paper. The ink, a deep, decisive black, flowed smoothly. He signed his name. A collective, almost imperceptible sigh of relief went through the room. Peterson broke into a wide grin, extending his hand. "Congratulations, Garrison. Welcome to Salesforce." The handshake was firm, a corporate ritual sealing a transfer of power and wealth. One of the junior analysts, a kid barely out of college, let out a small, excited whoop before his superior shot him a quelling look. The tension in the room instantly evaporated, replaced by a forced, clubby camaraderie. "We have a celebratory lunch scheduled at Uchi at noon," Peterson announced, checking his $15,000 Rolex. "Our treat, of course." Garrison forced a smile. "Thank you, but I'd like to take a rain check. I need to go tell my team. And my wife." The mention of his wife felt strange on his tongue. He pictured her face, imagining the moment he would tell her. He would walk in the door, not with the usual cloud of exhaustion and worry, but with the bright, clear light of success. He would say the words, "I sold the company." And then the number, $100 million. He imagined her shock, then the slow dawn of understanding, the joy that would finally fill her eyes. He imagined her throwing her arms around him, the distance between them collapsing in an instant. This was the payoff. This was the scene he had replayed in his mind for years. "Of course," Peterson said, his tone suggesting he found Garrison's priorities quaint but respectable. "Family first. Your wire instructions are confirmed. The funds will be transferred to your designated account by end of business day. For tax purposes, the official transaction time is 10:19 a.m. Central Time. Garrison nodded, his mind reeling. He owned nothing but a beat-up Camry and some old clothes. He had $1,228 in his personal checking account. By 5 p.m., that balance would read 9 figures. The absurdity of it was staggering. He stood up, the legs of his chair making a quiet scraping sound on the polished concrete floor. He shook a few more hands, accepted the hollow congratulations, and walked out of the conference room. As he rode the silent, high-speed elevator down 34 floors, he felt a profound sense of dislocation. The city of Austin sprawled below him, a map of his own history. He could see the cluster of low-rise buildings on South Lamar where his office was, the green belt where he used to run to clear his head, the glittering thread of Lady Bird Lake. It all looked the same, but he was a different man than the one who had ridden this elevator up an hour ago. He was wealthy beyond his wildest imaginings. He was successful by every metric the world valued. He felt a surge of pure, unadulterated triumph. It was a feeling that would last for exactly 8 hours and 28 minutes. As the elevator doors opened into the grand, marble-clad lobby, he pulled out his phone, a 3-year-old iPhone with a cracked screen, and sent a simple text to Erica. "Heading home soon. Have the most amazing news." Her reply came back almost instantly. "Can't wait to hear. Drive safe." He smiled, pocketing the phone. "Can't wait to hear." The words were a balm on his soul. Everything was going to be okay. In fact, it was going to be better than okay. It was going to be perfect. He stepped out of the air-conditioned chill of the glass tower and into the thick, humid heat of a Texas afternoon, feeling for the first time in 12 years like he could finally breathe. The drive from downtown Austin to Westlake Hills should have been a victory lap. Garrison navigated his 2012 Toyota Camry through the afternoon traffic, the car's sputtering air conditioner a familiar, comforting sound against the backdrop of his new reality. He felt a strange lightness. The crushing weight of financial uncertainty lifted from his shoulders for the first time in his adult life. He was a founder who had made it to the promised land. But as he drove, his mind, now free from the constant anxiety of running his business, began to wander, replaying small, dissonant moments from the past year. These were the scenes of escalating betrayal, though he didn't have the language for them yet. They were just confusing footnotes in the story of his marriage, accumulating outrage he had unknowingly suppressed. There was the incident 3 months ago. He had come home early, a rare occurrence, hoping to surprise Erica with dinner from her favorite Thai restaurant. He found her in their bedroom, on the phone, her back to the door. Her voice was different from the one she used with him. It was low, intimate, and full of a throaty laughter he hadn't heard directed at him in years. As he stood in the doorway, he heard her say, "Oh, you're terrible." No, he never notices anything. His head is always in the clouds, or in his laptop. She sensed his presence then, turning around with a jolt, her beautiful face, a mask of pleasant surprise barely concealing a flash of panic. "Garrison, you're home." She ended the call abruptly. "Who was that?" he asked, a knot of unease tightening in his stomach. "Just my cousin Dina," she'd said smoothly, taking the bags of food from his hands. "You know how she gossips." He had let it go. He was too tired to argue, too willing to believe the easy lie over the complicated truth. What he didn't know was that the man on the other end of the line was Channing, a smarmy real estate developer she'd met at a gallery opening. Then there were the girls' trips. They had become more frequent in the last 9 months. A weekend in Miami, a few days in Napa. Erica would return with a deep tan and a collection of expensive new clothes, paid for with credit cards he didn't know she had. She'd show him the pictures on her phone, carefully curated shots of her and her friends sipping wine or lounging by a pool. He never saw any photos that included Channing, a man whose existence he was not even aware of. The trips always seemed to coincide with periods of intense pressure at Nexus Flow, times when Garrison was working 18-hour days, sleeping on the couch in his office. "You work so hard, baby," she'd say, her voice dripping with a sympathy that now, in retrospect, felt like condescension. "You deserve for me to get out of your hair for a bit." It was a perfect excuse, framing her absence as a kindness to him. The outrage was there, simmering beneath the surface of his consciousness. She was spending money they didn't have, living a life of leisure while he drove himself into the ground for their shared future. A future she was actively working to sabotage. The most cutting memory was from just 2 weeks ago. It was their anniversary. He had managed to secure a small secondary round of funding, just enough to keep the lights on for another 6 months as they pushed toward the Salesforce acquisition, which at that point was still just a possibility. He came home, his heart full of fragile hope. He had bought her a simple silver bracelet from a local artisan. Its cost a modest $300 that he'd agonized over. He found her in the walk-in closet, surrounded by her luxury goods. He presented the small box to her. "Happy anniversary, Erica." She opened it, her expression unreadable. She looked at the delicate bracelet, then back at him. "It's nice, Garrison. It's very thoughtful." The word thoughtful was delivered with the same inflection one might use for a child's crayon drawing. She placed the box on her marble-topped vanity next to a newly acquired $8,000 Cartier watch. She never put the bracelet on. Later that evening, as he was clearing the dinner plates, he heard her on the phone again, her voice a low murmur. He caught a snippet of the conversation as he walked by. "No, of course not. Just another piece of sentimental junk. I don't know how much longer I can do this, but don't worry. The plan is still on. Out by Tuesday. He'll be so crushed by the business failing, he'll never even see it coming." He froze, his hand on the kitchen doorway. Out by Tuesday? Business failing? It didn't make sense. He confronted her, his heart hammering against his ribs. "Erica, who was that? What plan?" She turned, her face a mask of practiced innocence and pity. "Oh, honey, you misheard. I was talking to the decorator about the guest room furniture. It's being delivered Tuesday, and I was saying we need the old stuff out by Tuesday. And I was just venting that I wish this whole stressful startup chapter was over for you, that the business would just, resolve itself one way or another, so you could finally relax." She had walked over to him, placing a cool hand on his cheek. "You're so stressed, you're hearing things. Let's just go to bed." He had allowed himself to be placated. The explanation was plausible, and the alternative was too monstrous to contemplate. He was a man on the edge of a cliff, and he chose to believe he was standing on solid ground. He chose to believe in the woman he had married, in the 12 years they had shared. He had no idea that she was not just planning to leave him, she was banking on his failure. Her entire exit strategy was predicated on the assumption that Nexus Flow would implode, leaving him a broken, defeated man who wouldn't have the resources or the will to fight her. As he turned his Camry onto their street in Westlake Hills, the setting sun casting long shadows across the manicured lawns, all these memories coalesced. The laughter on the phone, the expensive trips, the dismissive tone, the phrase, "out by Tuesday." Today was Tuesday. The pieces clicked into place with a horrifying, sickening finality. The triumph he had felt just hours before curdled into a cold, heavy dread. He was driving toward the finish line, but he was suddenly terrified of what he would find there. The time was 6:47 p.m. The Austin sun, a fiery orange ball, was sinking below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of purple and pink. The air was still thick and warm. Garrison turned his old Camry onto the long, curving driveway of his $3.2 million home. The first thing he saw was the truck. It was a large, yellow Penske moving truck, its back ramp down, parked jarringly on the pristine cobblestone motor court. Its presence was a visceral violation of the curated perfection of the space. For a moment, his mind refused to process it. Maybe Erica had bought more furniture? Maybe she was donating old things. Then he saw them. The harsh, industrial floodlights from the truck's cargo bay illuminated the scene like a grim stage play. There was Erica, his wife of 12 years, her elegant form clad in tight-fitting yoga pants and a tank top. Her beautiful, intricate braids were pulled back in a practical ponytail. She was directing the movement of a large abstract sculpture from their garden, a piece that had cost $22,000. And next to her, helping her guide the heavy object, was a man. He was tall, with a gym-honed physique and an air of smug self-satisfaction. Garrison had never seen him before, but he knew with a certainty that was as cold and hard as the stone in his gut that this was Channing. They were laughing. Channing said something, and Erica threw her head back and laughed, a sound that echoed unnaturally in the quiet evening air. It was the same intimate, joyful laugh Garrison had overheard on the phone. They were working together with a practiced, easy familiarity, their bodies moving in sync. The back of the truck was already half full. He could see the outlines of their living room furniture, the gray $28,000 sectional sofa, the spidery legs of their dining room chairs, boxes stacked high, marked in Erica's neat cursive, kitchen, closet, art. Garrison killed the engine. The Camry's sputtering air conditioner went silent. In the sudden, profound quiet, he could hear the scrape of the sculpture on the metal ramp. He could hear Channing grunt with effort. "Easy does it, baby. Don't want to scratch the new floors at the loft." "The loft in Bolden Creek," Erica replied, her voice breathless. "Our loft. I can't believe it's finally happening." Garrison's world, which had expanded to an infinite horizon of possibility just that morning, collapsed into the claustrophobic confines of his car. The $100 million, the VP title, the years of sacrifice, it all vanished. There was only this scene. The woman he loved, the woman for whom he believed he had just secured a lifetime of happiness, was systematically dismantling their life and handing it over to another man. And she was doing it on this day of all days. The brutal irony was a physical blow. She had gambled on his failure. Her out-by-Tuesday plan wasn't about furniture. It was about her. She had set this date weeks, maybe months ago, assuming that the Salesforce deal would have fallen through by now, and that he would come home a defeated man, too broken to notice or care that she was leaving. He sat there, behind the wheel of his beat-up car, completely hidden in the deepening twilight. The engine was off. The lights were off. He was just a ghost, watching the demolition of his own life. He didn't feel rage. He didn't feel sorrow. He felt nothing. A profound, terrifying, crystalline emptiness. The man who had just sold his company for $100 million simply ceased to exist. In his place was a silent observer, a data-gathering machine. He watched as Channing leaned in and kissed Erica, a long, possessive kiss right there in the driveway of the home Garrison had paid for. Erica wrapped her arms around his neck, melting into him. They broke apart, and Channing swatted her playfully on the backside. "Come on, we're almost done. I want to be out of here before he gets home. Don't want a scene." "Don't worry," Erica said, her voice laced with a casual cruelty that was more devastating than any shout. "He's probably drowning his sorrows at some dive bar. His big deal fell apart today, I'm sure of it. He'll be a mess. He never noticed anything anyway." Garrison sat perfectly still. He did not honk the horn. He did not get out of the car. He did not scream. He simply watched. He cataloged every item they loaded. He noted the brand of the truck. He noted the confident, proprietary way Channing moved through the space that was supposed to be Garrison's sanctuary. He watched them for 4 full minutes. 4 minutes that felt like a lifetime. In those 4 minutes, the warm, hopeful man who had left the Salesforce Tower died. A new man was born in that driver's seat. A man who was cold, methodical, and in possession of 2 things Erica knew nothing about: a PI report detailing her 9-month affair, and a bank account with $100 million in it. Finally, without making a sound, he put the Camry in reverse. He backed slowly, silently, down the long driveway, the crunch of the gravel under his tires the only sound. He reached the street, turned the car around, and drove away. They never saw him. They had no idea what was coming. The night was a blur of cold, calculated survival. Garrison didn't go to a dive bar to drown his sorrows. He drove to the Four Seasons in downtown Austin, a place he'd only ever been for investor meetings. He walked into the lobby, his worn-out Camry an anomaly among the valet's lineup of gleaming Porsches and Teslas. He booked their most expensive suite, the presidential suite, for $6,000 a night, paying with the corporate credit card he was supposed to have relinquished that afternoon. It felt like a small, meaningless act of rebellion. The suite was opulent, impersonal, and vast. It had sweeping views of Lady Bird Lake, the water dark and placid under the night sky. He stood at the floor-to-ceiling window, looking out at the city, his city, which now felt alien to him. He didn't cry, he didn't rage. The shock had cauterized his emotions, leaving only a chilling clarity. He was playing dumb, but it wasn't an act. He was dumbfounded, hollowed out. His silence was his shield, and now it would become his weapon. He pulled out his phone. The text message from Erica was still there. "Can't wait to hear. Drive safe." The lie was so bald, so effortless, it was almost admirable in its audacity. He thought about calling her. He thought about sending her a photo of the moving truck. He thought about unleashing the torrent of pain and betrayal that was slowly, very slowly, beginning to thaw inside him. But he didn't. That would be an emotional response. And the man who had built a multi-million-dollar company from scratch knew that emotional responses were tactical errors. Instead, he made 2 calls. The first was to a man named Marcus Thorne, the most feared divorce attorney in the state of Texas. Thorne was a legend, a silver-haired shark who billed at $1,500 an hour and had dismantled the empires of oil barons and tech moguls. Garrison had been given his number years ago by his corporate lawyer with a simple instruction: pray you never have to use this, but if you do, don't hesitate. The phone rang twice before a crisp voice answered. Thorne. "Mr. Thorne, my name is Garrison Hayes. I was referred by Greg Bishop. I need to schedule an emergency consultation." "I'm booked for the next 3 weeks," Thorne said, his voice dismissive. Garrison took a breath. "I believe you'll want to make time. My wife of 12 years is currently moving out of our home with her lover. She believes I am broke. However, at 10:19 a.m. this morning, I finalized the sale of my company to Salesforce for $100 million. We have a prenup. I need to file for divorce tomorrow." There was a beat of silence on the other end of the line. Garrison could almost hear the gears turning in Thorne's expensive legal mind. "My office, 9:00 a.m. sharp. Bring the prenup and any and all documentation you have." The line went dead. The second call was to a private investigator named Frank Russo, a grizzled ex-cop Garrison had hired 6 weeks ago. The sentimental junk comment about the anniversary bracelet had been the final, undeniable crack in the facade. It was the piece of data that didn't fit the model. So Garrison, the data analyst, had decided to get more data. He had acted against his own heart, against his own hope, and hired Frank. It was a $15,000 expense that had felt like a betrayal in itself, a sickening admission of his own doubt. "Russo," Frank answered, his voice gravelly. "Frank, it's Garrison Hayes. It's happening. Right now. They're at the house." "I know," Frank said, his voice grim. "I've had a man on the house since noon. We have eyes on the truck, on her, and on the boyfriend, Channing Maxwell. Real estate guy, leveraged to the hilt, lives in a rented loft in Bolden Creek. We have everything, Garrison. Photos, videos, timelines. The whole 9-month sordid affair. He followed her to Napa last month. It wasn't a girl's trip. The file is ready. I'm sorry, kid." "Don't be sorry, Frank," Garrison said, his voice devoid of emotion. "Just be thorough. I need the complete file delivered to Marcus Thorne's office by 8:30 a.m. tomorrow. Consider it done." Garrison hung up the phone. He had done it. He had suppressed the urge to confront, to scream, to expose himself. He had retreated, feigned ignorance, and laid the groundwork for a strategic response. Each lie Erica had told, each act of deceit, was not just a personal wound anymore. It was evidence. His silence tonight was the ultimate act of playing dumb. He was letting her complete her crime. He was letting her believe she was getting away with it, that she was the smart one, the one in control. She was moving into a rented loft with her lover, believing she had secured her freedom and a trove of their shared assets, while he, the broken failure, would be left with nothing. She had no idea that she was walking into the most precisely engineered trap of her life. He stood at the window of his 6,000 a night suite and watched the city lights twinkle, feeling nothing but the cold, clean hum of a machine about to be switched on. Wednesday morning dawned cool and clear. At 8:45 a.m., Garrison walked into the hushed, wood-paneled lobby of Thorne & Associates. The firm occupied the top 2 floors of a skyscraper overlooking the Texas state capitol. The air smelled of old leather and money. He was wearing the same $250 blazer he'd worn to the Salesforce meeting, a silent testament to the seismic shift that had occurred in the last 24 hours. He felt like a general arriving at his war room. Marcus Thorne was exactly as advertised. He was in his late 60s, with a mane of perfectly coiffed silver hair, piercing blue eyes, and a suit that probably cost more than Garrison's Camry. He didn't stand or offer a hand. He simply gestured to one of the 2 leather chairs in front of his massive, uncluttered desk. "Mr. Hayes, sit." The office was a shrine to power. Diplomas from Harvard Law and Yale hung on one wall, framed photos of Thorne with governors and senators on another. Through the window behind his desk, the Capitol dome gleamed in the morning sun. "Let's not waste time," Thorne began, his voice a low, commanding baritone. "I've reviewed the file from your investigator, Mr. Russo. It's exemplary, airtight. We have dates, times, hotel receipts, photographs of them in Napa, Miami, and entering a loft in Bolden Creek no fewer than 47 times in the last 9 months. We have a transcript of a conversation overheard by the PI where your wife explicitly states her intention to leave you on Tuesday because she believed your business was failing. And we have video evidence of them loading your marital assets into a moving truck last night. This is not a divorce case, Mr. Hayes. This is a demolition." He slid a document across the desk. It was the prenuptial agreement they had signed 12 years ago. Garrison remembered the day clearly. Erica had called it unromantic. He, ever the pragmatist, had called it good business. It was his lawyer's one non-negotiable condition before he poured his small inheritance into the initial seed money for Nexus Flow. Thorne tapped a paragraph with a manicured finger. Section 7B, the Separate Property Clause. It explicitly states that any and all assets, proceeds, or equity derived from your business entity, Nexus Flow LLC, are your sole and separate property, not subject to division in the event of dissolution of the marriage. Your wife's attorneys will fight this. They will argue duress. They will argue unconscionability. They will lose. Thorne leaned back in his $15,000 Herman Miller chair. The house in Westlake Hills is marital property, technically. However, given the overwhelming evidence of fraud and infidelity, and the fact that she has voluntarily abandoned the residence to cohabitate with her lover, we will argue for a disproportionate award of the community estate in your favor. We will get you the house. We will get you every stick of furniture she left behind. She will walk away with her personal effects, the contents of that moving truck, and half of the credit card debt she's racked up. That's it? Garrison listened, his face a stoic mask. The numbers and legal terms were a cold comfort, a logical framework for the emotional chaos he was feeling. The total value of the assets she attempted to take last night, Thorne continued, consulting a sheet of paper, is approximately $275,000. That includes furniture, art, and jewelry. We will file a temporary restraining order this morning, freezing all your joint accounts and preventing her from disposing of any of those assets. The petition for divorce will be filed by 11 Hawaiian at an a.m. It will cite infidelity. It will include the full PI report as an exhibit. It will be delivered by a process server to her new address, 1500 South Congress, Unit 3B, this afternoon. Thorne paused, his blue eyes locking onto Garrison's. Now, the important question. What about the money? The $100 million, does she know? No, Garrison said, his voice quiet but firm. She has no idea. She thinks I'm broke. A slow, predatory smile spread across Marcus Thorne's face. Oh, this is going to be exquisite. The moment she gets served, she's going to call her lawyer. Her lawyer is going to run an asset search. They're going to see the wire transfer from Salesforce. They're going to see the number. And then they're going to see Section 7B of the prenup. Her entire world is going to vaporize in the space of about 30 minutes. He stood up, signaling the meeting was over. My retainer is $100,000. Wire it to the account information my assistant will provide. We will handle everything. Your only job, Mr. Hayes, is to not answer your phone when she calls. Do you understand? No contact. Let her unravel. Let her scream into the void. We will do the talking. Garrison stood up, feeling a grim sense of purpose. This wasn't about revenge. This was about consequences. This was about accountability. He had built his company on a foundation of logic, data, and execution. He would dismantle his marriage the same way. I understand, he said. He walked out of the office, leaving the demolition in Thorne's capable hands, and for the first time since he saw the moving truck, he felt a flicker of something other than pain, the cold, hard certainty of justice. The strike was executed with the silent, brutal efficiency of a military operation. At 11:02 a.m. on Wednesday, Marcus Thorne's paralegal electronically filed the divorce petition with the Travis County Courthouse. At 1:27 p.m., a process server, a burly ex-Marine with a neck tattoo, parked his unassuming Ford sedan across the street from the trendy, overpriced apartment building in Boldan Creek, where Channing lived. The building, all reclaimed wood and exposed ductwork, tried to project an image of bohemian authenticity, but it was just a flimsy facade, much like the relationship it now housed. The process server waited. At 2:14 p.m., Erica and Channing emerged from the building. They were holding hands, smiling. Erica looked radiant, dressed in a new $600 sundress, her face glowing with the thrill of her newfound freedom. Channing looked smug, a man who believed he had won the jackpot. They were heading to lunch at Perla's on South Congress, a place Erica had always complained Garrison couldn't afford. The server approached them as they reached the sidewalk. Erica Hayes? He asked, his voice flat. Erica's smile faltered slightly. Yes? You've been served. He handed her the thick manila envelope and walked away without another word. Confusion clouded her features. She looked at the envelope, then at Channing. What is this? She tore it open. Her eyes scanned the first page, the bold heading, Original Petition for Divorce. Her face went white. The color drained from her cheeks, leaving her beautiful, luminous skin looking ashen. What? Channing asked, peering over her shoulder. He's divorcing you. The poor bastard finally cracked. He let out a short, contemptuous laugh. But Erica wasn't listening. She was frantically flipping through the pages, her hands starting to tremble. She saw the grounds for divorce cited as infidelity. Then she reached the exhibits. The first was a series of photographs. A grainy but clear shot of her and Channing kissing in the driveway of the Westlake house. A shot of them checking into a hotel in Napa, the date and time clearly stamped in the corner. A photo of them entering the Boldan Creek loft. "Oh my God," she whispered, her voice a thread. The document slipped from her fingers, scattering across the dirty sidewalk. Channing bent to pick them up, his smug expression dissolving into one of dawning horror as he saw the depth and detail of the evidence. How? Erica breathed. How could he know? He never notices anything. She was repeating the same fatal miscalculation that had been her mantra for months. This was the moment the antagonist's world began to collapse. The first wave of shock was just the beginning. The real devastation would come in stages, delivered electronically to Garrison's phone, which he had placed on silent on the passenger seat of his car as he drove aimlessly through the hill country west of Austin. The first voicemail came at 2:48 p.m. It was from Erica. Her voice was shaking with rage. "Garrison, what the hell is this? You're divorcing me after everything I put up with? Your obsession with that stupid company, and you had me followed? You sick, paranoid monster, you call me back right now." Click. This was the anger and denial phase. The second voicemail came at 3:15 p.m. The anger was gone, replaced by a frantic, high-pitched panic. She had clearly spoken to a lawyer. "Garrison, okay, I just found out about the sale. Salesforce? $100 million? Is that a joke? You have to call me. This changes everything. Obviously, we need to talk about this. This is marital property, Garrison. That money is ours." Click. This was the justification phase, the desperate scramble to claim a prize she had just discovered existed. The third voicemail arrived at 4:30 p.m. Her lawyer had obviously seen the prenup. The panic had curdled into pure, unadulterated horror. Her voice was barely a whisper, cracking with disbelief. "The prenup? My lawyer just read me the prenup. Section 7B. He said it's ironclad." No, that can't be right. We were married for 12 years. I supported you. I decorated that house. I hosted those parties. That money, Garrison, you can't do this to me. You can't just cut me out. That's not fair. Please call me. Click. This was the horror phase. The moment the floor fell out from under her, the voicemails kept coming. A cascade of escalating desperation. Voicemail 4, 5:12 p.m. Pleading. "Baby, it was a mistake. Channing meant nothing. I was just lonely. You were never home. We can fix this. I'll move back in tonight. I'll send all the furniture back. Please, Garrison. I love you. I've always loved you." Voicemail 5, 6:01 p.m. Crying. Incoherent sobs punctuated by his name. "Garrison, please, don't. My life, everything is gone." Voicemail 6, 7:30 p.m. A message from Channing. His voice was cold, stripped of its earlier bravado. "Listen, Hayes, this has gone far enough. You need to call her. She's a mess. And this PI report, it's affecting my business. My name is on this. You're trying to ruin me." Garrison listened to each message, his face impassive. He felt a distant, clinical pity, the way a doctor might feel for a patient with a self-inflicted wound. He was not the cause of their downfall. He was merely the instrument of its documentation. They had built this prison of lies themselves. He was just the one who finally turned the key. The coordinated strike was complete. The fallout was just beginning. The consequences cascaded with the brutal, impersonal logic of an avalanche. Erica and Channing had made a calculated bet, and they had lost spectacularly. The bill came due, and it was itemized with devastating precision. First, the money. Erica's belief that the $100 million was their money evaporated in the harsh light of Section 7B of the prenuptial agreement. Marcus Thorne's legal team preemptively filed a motion for summary judgment on the issue of separate property. A judge, after reviewing the clear language of the prenup and the evidence of the Salesforce transaction, signed the order within a week. Erica's legal claim to the $100 million was extinguished before it could even begin. Her legal fees, which her hastily hired lawyer demanded up front, cost her $25,000, money she had to borrow from her parents. She lost access to a fortune she had only known about for approximately 90 minutes. Second, the house. The $3.2 million Westlake Hills home became a legal battleground for 2 weeks. Erica's lawyer argued for a forced sale and a 50-50 split of the proceeds. Thorne countered with a motion detailing her infidelity, her fraudulent intent, and her abandonment of the property. He attached the PI's video of her and Channing loading the moving truck, a damning piece of evidence. The judge, a no-nonsense woman in her 50s, awarded the house and all its remaining contents to Garrison. Erica was legally barred from the property. The home she had so meticulously curated was no longer hers. Third, the assets she had taken. The contents of the Penske truck, valued at $275,000, became her entire settlement. The $28,000 sofa, the expensive art, the designer clothes, they were now crammed into Channing's 900-square-foot loft in Boldan Creek, a space that rented for $3,500 a month. The furniture was too large. The art looked ridiculous on the exposed brick walls. It was a dragon's hoard in a tiny cave, a constant mocking reminder of the kingdom she had lost. Furthermore, Thorne successfully argued that the $150,000 in credit card debt she had accumulated on her secret cards was her sole responsibility. The value of her winnings was effectively cut by more than half overnight. Fourth, Channing. The Golden Boy real estate developer was not the wealthy savior Erica had imagined. Frank Russo's PI report, now a public document in the divorce filing, revealed he was leveraged to the breaking point. He was a house of cards, funding a lavish lifestyle, with high-interest loans and other people's money. When news of the sordid affair hit the tight-knit Austin real estate community, his investors got spooked. A major backer for his new condo project pulled out, triggering a default clause in his financing. Within a month, his company filed for bankruptcy. He lost everything. The smug man who had helped load Erica's furniture was now being forced to sell his own. Their relationship, built on the thrill of deception and the promise of a shared, luxurious future, could not survive the harsh reality of failure. They broke up 3 months after the divorce was finalized, their parting marked by bitter, shouted recriminations in the cramped, overstuffed loft. Fifth, social standing. Erica had cultivated an image as a sophisticated, wealthy wife in one of Austin's most exclusive circles. The public nature of the divorce filing, with its detailed accounts of her affair and her calculated betrayal, shattered that image completely. The friends who had once admired her $5,000 handbags now whispered about her behind her back. Invitations to gallery openings and charity galas stopped coming. She was no longer a player. She was a cautionary tale. She was forced to sell most of the furniture and art she had taken just to cover her living expenses and legal bills, getting pennies on the dollar for items she had once flaunted. For Garrison, the consequences were different. He was left with a fortune he had never chased for its own sake, a house that felt cavernous and empty, and a profound wound where his marriage used to be. But he was free. He had faced the ultimate betrayal and had not broken. He had responded not with rage, but with strategy. The consequences that befell Erica and Channing were not products of his cruelty, but the direct and inevitable result of their own choices. He had simply held up a mirror, and the reflection had destroyed them. The cascade was over. All that was left was the quiet, echoing silence of the aftermath. 2 years passed. The sharp edges of the betrayal began to soften, not disappearing, but wearing down like sea glass into something he could hold without cutting himself. The Westlake Hills house, once a symbol of a life that was never truly his, was sold. He let it go for $3.5 million, taking none of the designer furniture with him. He moved into a modest, comfortable condo on the south shore of Lady Bird Lake, a space filled with light, books, and the easy quiet of a life lived on his own terms. The $100 million after taxes, lawyers' fees, and the sale of the house settled into a number that was still immense but manageable. He could have retired. He could have bought a yacht, a private jet, an island. He could have become the man Erica always wanted him to be. Instead, he became the man he was always meant to be. He took $10 million and founded the Nexus Project, an incubator and seed fund based in a converted warehouse in East Austin. Its mission was simple: to invest in and mentor founders from working-class backgrounds, people of color, women. The brilliant, driven outsiders who, like him, were often overlooked by traditional venture capital. He didn't want to build another sterile glass tower. The Nexus Project headquarters was a vibrant, chaotic, and collaborative space. The walls were covered in whiteboards filled with frantic scribbles. The air hummed with the energy of creation and smelled perpetually of strong coffee and takeout pizza. The furniture was a hodgepodge of inexpensive desks from IKEA and comfortable, second-hand couches. It felt more alive than his old mansion ever had. He wasn't the distant, untouchable VP at Salesforce. He was Garrison, the mentor who would stay until 2 a.m. to help a young coder fix a bug, the guy who would listen for hours as a founder tearfully confess their fear of failure. He poured his knowledge, his time, and his money into these new ventures, finding a deeper satisfaction in their small victories than he ever had in his own monolithic success. His life was no longer about a single massive exit. It was about planting 100 seeds and tending the garden. One sunny afternoon, a young black woman named Maya, the founder of an edtech startup he was mentoring, stopped by his office. She was a single mother, brilliant and tenacious, building her company between her day job and caring for her daughter. "Garrison, this is for you," she said, handing him a folded piece of construction paper. Ania made it. He unfolded it. It was a child's drawing, rendered in thick, waxy crayon. It depicted 2 figures holding hands under a bright yellow sun. One was a woman with big curly hair. The other was a man with short, neat locks. Ania had taken a brown crayon and carefully colored in their faces and arms. At the bottom, in wobbly letters, she had written, "Maya, Mr. Garrison." He stared at the drawing, a lump forming in his throat. This simple piece of paper, this innocent depiction of connection and gratitude, held more value than any $18,000 painting or $28,000 sofa. It was authentic. It was real. It was a symbol of the new community he was building, a family forged not by legal contracts but by shared purpose and mutual respect. He looked up at Maya, her face alight with a hopeful, nervous smile. "Thank you," he said, his voice thick with an emotion he hadn't felt in a long time. This is the best thing I've ever been given. Later that evening, as the sun set, Garrison went for a run along the trail circling Lady Bird Lake. The path was crowded with the life of the city, students, couples, families. He ran with an easy, steady rhythm, his feet pounding the dirt path, his lungs filling with the warm, humid air. He passed the spot where he could see the glass tower of the Salesforce building, a distant monument to a former life. He felt no bitterness, he felt no regret. He had forgiven Erica, not for her sake, but for his. He had let go of the anger, making space for something new to grow. True wealth, he now understood, isn't a number in a bank account. It's not a house on a hill or a car in the driveway. True wealth is purpose. It's community. It's the freedom to build a life that is authentically yours, a life rich with connections that are based on who you are, not what you have. He had lost a wife and a life he thought he wanted, but he had found himself. And in the quiet glow of the Austin sunset, running toward a future he was building on his own terms, Garrison Hayes was finally, truly, immeasurably rich. We all face moments that test our character and redefine our lives. What does true wealth mean to you? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please like, share and subscribe to Love Beyond Pride for more stories about the power of the human spirit.